Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Rules for Success podcast, rulesforsuccess.com. I've got two good friends from my community here. We have David Vogel, who runs Remote Video Testimonials, and Chris Nolte, who just completed his book, and it's being launched this week. His book is called Operational Alpha, and excited to really dive into the book, into what Chris has been doing with his business, being able to leverage and have an extraordinary kick-ass team, kick-butt team is so vital for all of us as entrepreneurs, as leaders. And with these two gentlemen, especially with Chris, I've had so many distinctions for myself over the course of the past year that I've learned from Chris, including having daily huddles that have like really blown my mind away. So I'm excited about digging deeper as we're in process to launch this extraordinary book, as he's in process to launch this extraordinary book, Operation Alpha. Let me give you a little bit of Chris's background here, is to give him to serve him a little better beyond that, because Chris is an accomplished entrepreneur. He's a founder and CEO of Kayana and the author of Operation Alpha. His work focuses on helping companies redesign how work gets done by combining global talent, AI-enabled workflows, and stronger operating systems. Today, we're going to explore how companies can cope instead of thrive, and why companies cope instead of thrive, and what leaders can do to build execution that actually scales so they can truly thrive. So I'm excited to have both these gentlemen in this conversation. David's one of the reasons why I got introduced to Chris. We have a community called Success Circles as a peer, like a momentum accountability community for entrepreneurs, and people share gold nuggets, and we share resources, we help each other, we cross-pollinate, and like somehow in the midst of all of this, I got connected with Chris and learned a lot from him that's been priceless for me in my journey this past year with what we do with remote workers, team members in the Philippines. So Chris and David, great to have you both today.
Thank you. Thank you, Joseph. Great to be here. Great to be here. I'm excited to have David here. David and you, Joseph, have been instrumental in sort of helping me drive this business of remote talent. And if I remember correctly, you both have a certain attraction to the game of baseball. And I suspect, and I probably haven't tested you, either of you, on this, but like, how enjoyable is the movie or the book, if you've read or watched Moneyball? It's just
love that movie.
I love it. I love it. I think it's just so great. And if I ever want to get hyped up, that's the movie I watch. Because this notion of like changing the game and finding hidden talent, or recognizing, seeing something differently and being right, is so intellectually attractive to me. Okay. And I built a career around this. I did this once in donation retail, where I used data to identify locations and opportunities for goodwill all around the country. I was the largest builder of goodwills all around the country. Donation retail in New York and Boston, where it was started, as far west as Denver, as far south as Austin. And about 4 years ago, I met someone in the Philippines, and this was not any somebody. It turned out to be a woman who was a material scientist by training and an engineer by trade. And for whatever reason, she became my sort of operating partner in a couple of other businesses I was working on, for what seemed to me an insane rate. And I thought to myself, how is it possible that such a smart person, such an incredible human being, could be connected to me and be helping me drive my business every single day in a way that a feeling of abundance that I'd not felt in decades. And what I came to realize is that all around the world, there's incredibly capable people. But for whatever reason, the market has mispriced them. And in that moment, I saw Moneyball, right? Because I saw, and I didn't have to do the numbers. I didn't have to be, I guess what is something James. I forgot his, I want to say Rick James, but that's not right. That's, but it's basically these sort of underlying OBP, are we buying players or are we buying wins? And how do we make that happen? Well, we need runs. And how do we get runs? We get people on base. Well, in the world of work, in the world of building businesses, what you want to buy is capability. You want to buy capability. And in the world of capability, are there places that are being mispriced so that you can access that capability and leverage your company to do more? And that spawned the creation of the business, and it's the underpinnings of this book. The underpinnings of this book is basically the infrastructure that we developed, but from a different perspective. Because on the surface of this, you're probably thinking, okay, capability, staffing company. What I realized is, as big of a problem and as mispriced as the talent was, the real problem was that the talent was being homogenized and commoditized in a way that was hard to discern the truly talented from the sort of less talented. And that they were being, even if you had like some sort of insight into it, the data was so murky that you had to kind of dig a little bit deeper.
So Chris, you've essentially built a talent agency for remote workers in the Philippines. There's a very value-oriented culture. And I love what you said before, because your first assistant you got remote worker happens to be an engineer. David and I happen to be engineers, our background, and engineers think they can do it all, right? And you found somebody highly exceptional in that world,
right?
And then you went to build a talent agency around people on that level. I'm curious. First of all, how do you go about finding talent? I'm sure you have a process for that. And secondly, I want to know about Operation Alpha.
Yeah.
What does that phrase mean? And I know there's an element of an operating system involved with that too.
Yep.
Please tell me.
Yeah. So, ideas are cheap. Execution is where the value is created, right? So, the way people create alpha operationally is by finding those inefficiencies, those arbitrages, those different ways of working. And it's so apropos to be talking about this in 2026 when the world of work, how and where work gets done, is changing rapidly. In a world of AI, in a world of where the world is getting smaller and smaller every day, workflow automation, remote teams, right? And so, finding really my first experience was my window in. But the truth is every single day we're meeting brilliant people. And the question you have to ask yourself is why wasn't this accessible before? Why, if this is true, why weren't people doing it? And how does that work exactly? And the answer is people did understand it, but it was hidden up market. And what I mean by that is that the people that were really leveraging that talent was the S&P 500 corporations. S&P 500 corporations, they don't outsource because offshore is onshore somewhere else. They stand up huge operations, not just call center. Yeah, they might have started there 25 years ago, but now it's technical help and marketing skill and accounting execution, everything under the sun that you can imagine in talent is now sitting all around the world. I mean, the sun never sleeps on JP Morgan. They have 45,000 people in India, employees, right? And so, and that's not one big call center. That's a whole stack of capability. And that's just one country. Jamie Dimon is famous in the Philippines. They love him there. They love Jamie Dimon. And to think that Jamie Dimon's an international brand is kind of an amazing thing, because Jamie Dimon is the employer of thousands and thousands of people. And I've seen their buildings. It's amazing. And they're not outsourcing at all. So then the question is, okay, S&P 500 figured out, why aren't middle market companies, why aren't they figuring this out? And where does the sort of smaller businesses fit in? And the answer is it's very difficult. And the reason is because these businesses lack the interface to access this talent. And it's funny. David can tell you a little more about this, but David, I met David over 2 years ago, maybe like a year and a half, years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah, and David, I remember our first meeting. He was so skeptical. He was Mr. Skeptic, which, you know, this is actually
don't forget
natural.
our first meeting. The purpose of our first meeting wasn't even what you were doing.
Yeah.
I changed the conversation. You were coming to me for what I was doing.
Right.
Like, no,
I was thinking I need testimonials.
And I'm like, no, I'll give it to you later. I need to hire you first.
Yeah. And basically he was telling me the story, his own story about working with remote talent and how painful it was. And David, I'll let you tell that story a little bit if you'd like to. But it was just like a revolving door of gig workers. And the minute it started to work, the relationship fell apart.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is actually the story of work everywhere, not just the story of David and his remote teams and remote talent. Because, you know, let's face it, we're in a day and age where you sit defines your value. In the sense that if you're in the office, you're more valuable than someone sitting at home versus someone sitting offshore in office versus someone sitting offshore in home. And you know, the interesting thing is there's this war going on about and discussing about where you sit and your value of the company. And there's plenty of people that are working hybrid now and they're frustrated to have to drive to the office. But the reality is it makes a lot of sense. And no one's really dissected why it makes a lot of sense. But the book goes into this. And what we talk about in the book is the following. The office provides, and this is actually very AI sort of, these words are going to sound very familiar to you because we think about this in terms of context. But the context of the office is really an invisible operating system. And, you know, the gold standard for how things should happen, the ways of assimilating information almost in a tacit way is very simple. And on top of that, you know, like, and you know, if you don't know how to do something, you kind of stroll down the hall and barge into someone's office and or overhear it over the water cooler. I mean, these are things that we know and love and that businesses thrive on. And it's also a crutch for bad managers. Because if you're a bad manager, you don't have to organize. You can walk down the hall and call a quick meeting, right? There doesn't have to be scheduling. You can say, you, let's talk in my office, right? But when you're working remotely, you suddenly lose all of that invisible operating system. And if you're depending upon it, well, everything falls apart. Now, it's also interesting. It goes the other way too. Why do people stay with companies? Is it just the money? No, it's a sense of belonging. It's a social system. And when people are working with you without that social system and that without that continuity and that memory, well, now everything's disposable.
Yeah.
Right.
And Chris, I love this because you're talking about context, you know, having an interface, having a means for people to have like a structure. So as you mentioned before, with remote workers, with even individuals now, hybrid work systems, how do we build a culture where we're connected, where progress is happening, where execution happens? Because I know most people care about execution very much so. And what you've taught me over the past year is just the value of building relationships, you know, with these incredible leaders who are very skilled. In the past, I've called these people virtual assistants. That's how I learned it many years ago. And all of a sudden you've humanized it to remote workers. And even the name of your business, Kayana, means something specifically in the Filipino culture of like, you know, like adding value of sorts, you know, to people. So it's brilliant having kind of, what does it stand for?
It's a Kayana is a mashup of Tagalog or Visaya, which means you can now. And it's a talent-facing brand that it makes a promise, right? It makes a promise to the talent. And no one's made promises to the talent. They've always been homogenized. They've been always marginalized. And so in that regard, this is very unique in the marketplace because, you know, going back to the Moneyball, analogy, and I bet you we all thought we were going to be professional athletes one day. But wouldn't it be neat to have like a managing agent in your career? Well, in the United States, your managing agent is maybe your parent, maybe a friend, right? But other than that, you're on your own and do your best you can. But if you're 8,000 miles away, you need that agent because there's so much context that you don't have, and there's no memory in the marketplace. And that's where we come in, where we become that managing agent in effect for that remote talent. And what we tell them is we say, look, we're never going to make more money. Every time you get a raise, every time you get a bonus, that goes to you. And now suddenly the talented people have this, the shoulders to stand on to really excel. And all we do is advocate for them. And so that's sort of a dynamic that hasn't really existed. And then you wrap that, you create a wrapper that basically imitates the in-office experience for them and creates community outside of even the client relationship. And now things get very sticky. So, you know, the KPIs around this, there's two numbers that I love that really suggest that this system's working. And by the way, you know, some people would say this is trade art and I should never have written this book. But I mean, I gave the keys away. I mean, this is it. This is how you do it. And that's the beauty of the book. But there's two numbers that we really love. One is, and David knows this our process pretty well. When we put people in front of our prospective clients, and we then train them, and then we put them in a testing environment with the client. Once you're selected as a talent, your likelihood of actually going through to full engagement is 98%.
Wow. Yeah.
So if you're a talented person and you have a job, even if I offer you twice as much as your job, but you're not sure you're going to get it, how likely are you to actually make a move? So that number becomes very important, because if you're selected and you have a 98% success rate, right, of like getting that opportunity and being able to retain it, that's amazing. Now, the other statistic, which is actually just and are more remarkable for this execution, is the self-termination rate. So one of the things that David, you know, struggled with is not that he didn't like the people he was working with or that they weren't doing good work, but they would disappear. They would leave. Yes. I remember David was telling me about this one person in India who he loved working with that did really good work. I still remember that, David. Amazing. And you worked with her for, I think it was, I want to say 3 to 6 months. I forget exactly what it was.
2 to 3 months. Yeah,
2 to 3 months. And she was awesome, right? There are awesome people. We've had these awesome experiences, but like, then she went away, disappeared into the night. And and that's basically, that's very appropriate for outsourcing relationships where the turnover, even in structured environments, is north of 40%.
Wow. Yeah.
So like when you have that much turnover, like how do you build with that? And that was sort of David's lament to me. And I said, listen, I think I got you. And he kind of like gave me the New Yorker sort of like side eye, like, really? I mean, you really got that? And I'm a New Yorker too. So I was that this is not to scare me away. So I said, yeah, we've got it. So it turns out our self-termination rate, the rate at which people leave the company, is between 3 and 5% first year, 5 to 7% by year 2.
And Chris, why is that? What are you doing differently?
It's the interface. It's about managing the details in the relationship.
What does interface design mean in plain English for the people? Like I'm a technologist, so I have a certain meaning to that, but the context, as you mentioned, is everything.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Okay. Well, if you can indulge me for a second, I'm going to tell you that idea actually came from a late night 2 a.m. sort of like I woke up and I started playing on my phone. I'm like, and I started reading this article about what they call the honeycomb conjecture. And this was a mathematical proof that took 1,000 years for humanity to do. I'm sure AI could do it in probably, I don't know, a week, whatever, maybe less. But in 1999, it was solved by a gentleman who basically proved that the hexagon was the most efficient shape, perimeter to area. Okay. In other words, if you take the ratio of the perimeter, right, and you compare it to the area within that perimeter, it is the absolute most efficient shape. Now, what's interesting about that is, where in nature do we see a hexagon?
Beehive.
Exactly right.
Love it. Yeah, that's right.
So the honeybee builds its honeycomb out of hexagons. And I thought, that is so brilliant. Nature had it figured out all along. It understood the underlying properties. It's because the honeybee wants to build walls really inexpensively as possible. And it creates these wax structures in the honeycomb form that are stackable. Now, it turns out a hexagon with n sides, like infinite sides, is a circle, but circles don't stack. Yes. Do you see that?
I see it now. I was like
that's the hexagon on the face of it. So it looks like it's a volume, right? It looks volumetric, but it actually is a hexagon, right?
Love it.
And so we've put a person in a volumetric hexagon, and that really, I think, kind of brings that idea to life. But this notion of the perimeter to area in the business world, where the area is the output of the company, and the perimeter is the things we do to generate that output, right?
Love that.
Suddenly gets you focused on the thickness of the perimeter, the length of the perimeter, and the things you do. And this is why some companies, as they scale, start adding perimeter faster than they're adding area, and it starts slowing them down. So this is a visual representation of scaling and growth, right? And I took that idea of that interface between, like, the efficiency of the perimeter to area, and I layered it into our business and said, how does this apply? And I use AI, of course, sort of thought leader, and it's like, here's how. And I looked at our business, I thought, oh my gosh, we are managing our interfaces. Here is what an interface is to our company. So in a practical sense, interfaces is meetings, it's rework, it's unnecessary, it's like it's not the ability of not letting go. It's all the things we do that make work heavy.
Love that.
Right?
It's very clear now.
It's all the things we do to make work heavy, and that then pulls the joy and the efficiency out of the business, right? And so how do we manage that in a remote setting? And how might a company think about where a person sits and the interfaces that they have to build to make that person valuable, more valuable than they would otherwise be if it was not intentionally built? Because my theory is, the operating theory is that people have been lazy, and they've been relying on the office environment and the interfaces that are in and built into that environment, the context. If they only thought a little bit more about that interface, maybe they can unlock those remote talent, right? Maybe they could go bigger and further. And what gets really interesting, and I end the book with this, not to give it away, but it's out, is that we are entering what I'll call the interface age. And the interface age is the designed world where we find efficient ways to unlock that hidden talent offshore, to unlock the value of AI, to integrate more closely with our partners, and to integrate more closely with our clients.
Okay, and you found a way to scale what you're doing, because we previously talked that your model is growing 10% each month. So basically, you're exponentially tapping into your operating system here to even grow Kayana, while also teaching people the basics of how to tap into building their own interface for themselves.
Yes, and this is opening their eyes to what they can do. And it really is, in a way, a starter set for change. Because what we're about to go through in our world for the next 3 to 5, 10 years is the reimagination of every business. And in many ways, that change management exercise begins with people. And who better to do it with than people that are highly focused and very disciplined in execution. And once you start thinking about how a remote talent can help you, you invariably start thinking about how AI can help you and help, how you can integrate more closely to your partners, because you start operating from a world of abundance and not scarcity.
Chris, in your book, you framed AI as an intern, not as an operator. So what are leaders getting wrong about AI right now? And as you mentioned, the next 3, 5, 10 years are going to be very interesting with what's happening now as it relates to culture, people, and AI.
Yeah.
And I know workflow is also an element of what you're doing here with all of this. So talk to us.
So it's the exact same problem I face when I'm talking to people about remote talent. And it's about expectations. When people hear remote talent, invariably, I have to train them to ask and demand more. I'm like the one company you'll find that demands their clients to have higher expectations and not lower expectations, right? And I did it just today. I said, listen, the person that were telling me about human capital and what they needed kept on like, well, it would be nice if there were all these conditions that were like them walking away from their standard. I said, stop doing that. I want you to want more. I want you to ask for more. I want you to demand more. I want you to ask for everything you could possibly want, because you're the one that's holding this back, because you don't know how to operate in a world of abundance. They're operating from a world of scarcity.
Wow.
In the world of AI, it's exactly the same thing, in the sense that people expect it to be less good. People tell themselves why it's not going to work. They can't, and if they're not working with it every single day, they don't understand how agentic AI works. Right? They can't make those connections. They can't imagine it, because you know what? Humans can't see beneath the iceberg of pattern recognition. Like we see the iceberg that's floating. Maybe it's like 3 feet above the sea surface water, and we're driving this boat by, and we're like, oh, and below it is like 1,000 feet of ice. But we can't see that. And that's that's human mentality about data, and deep data, and pattern recognition, because no one's ever had to think about how they come up with the next word that comes out of their mouth.
So essentially,
go ahead.
Essentially, operational alpha is not just about remote workers. It's also about agentic AI, how it's being utilized by people who are very talented, who really know what outcomes to drive after, supporting you. So it's a combination of different resources brought together with a human connection while maintaining like really strong, strict quality control. Would you say that?
Absolutely, that's right. It's funny. There's a book that could be written called Operational Alpha, and it would be the exact, but I wouldn't be the right person to tell that story, right? Because even though I'm using AI, they'd say, oh, another AI guy. Well, the exact corollary of this story could be told from the perspective of AI and how to design the interfaces. Now, the story would be a little different because you're not thinking about a person-to-person relationship, right? But the interface and the intentionality of integration is the same, right? And so now it's not UX UI, it's something else, right? Within the design of your business that will unlock that sort of human in the loop workflow within your business. And I think that but you have to let go of this. It's not good enough. It's not, it's not going to do this. It's not going to do that. I haven't used Fable 5 yet, and this won't date our podcast, but I've only used it a little bit, and it's just what it's doing is extraordinary. And I'm sitting before this meeting, I re-engineered a partner response based on their contract that they gave me, and I negotiated the whole thing with my agent CFO. And then I wrote my entire presentation deck for my book launch tomorrow based on a script that I built, and that all happened today. That would take me 2 weeks, 3 weeks to do. And I did it in 2 hours, and it's really good.
So, Chris, given that you mentioned you got some great systems running together, agentic AI, and all this is advancing very quickly. So where things will be in next few months to a year could be really extraordinary.
Right.
I'm blown away by when I see agentic AI, how it works, especially with the right people handling it. So what systems create trust with remote teams without turning the leader, the owner, the manager into a micromanager?
Right. So that, it's funny when I think about our business and what business we're in, everyone likes to kind of define their business. And I think, people would say, oh, you're in the staffing business, you're in the talent business. Actually, I'm in the trust business.
Hmm.
I'm in the trust business
Hmm.
because trust is the thing that if you don't have it, you can't build anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's especially true when you're building your team and building your partnerships. If you don't have that trust, that's everything. And what that means is to build trust quickly, you need data. You need performance.
Yeah.
Because if there is an area of underperformance, you're going to fall back into your tropes where, oh, this doesn't work or this doesn't happen. And it's the responsibility of the partner to demonstrate value as fast as possible. Because if you don't see that value quickly enough, so then it becomes a sequencing exercise.
Yeah.
And like, where do you start? And in the book, we talk about this, the 3 C's. And 3 C's are about clarity and commonality so that it's repeating and you're seeing compounding returns in a process. Wow. And as you see those compounding returns, you start to trust that process more and more and the person running it more and more. And because it's not happening every month, it's happening every day or every week, that trust compounds very quickly.
That's my language, compound growth, and
yes,
really going exponential. And like, I love that whole metaphor of the beehive, because when great context is established, when you've got incredible operating system / interface, unique and great things can happen, and we can scale faster and better with more joy. Yeah. So extraordinary. One last question, Chris, and I know we're running out of time soon. So when someone finishes Operation Alpha, what's the first thing you want them to change on Monday morning?
Well, one of the beauties of this book is we were able to build out a toolkit for it in a way that I've never seen any business book do it. Because every single framework and everything has working software that would have cost $500,000 to build that no one would ever build. Right. And we did it because we could, because we had the context, we had the data, we knew what we wanted to build, and we used AI to build all of those tools and systems. The first thing they're going to want to do is they're going to want to go to the 3 C's and say, find it's a scoring system based on processes that can be easily improved and compounded. And that unlock value, not just in the process alone, but for the person offloading those processes. You have to see and visualize that before you can go forward, because it doesn't matter what's behind the curtain if you can't see the opportunity.
And you shared with me before, your team went above and beyond with the additions to the book, the resources that are there, the QR codes to access things online, videos and content and much more. They came up with it, and that's like cherry on top of beyond even what you had envisioned for the book. So the book
was designed by one of our teammates. The book was all the illustrations. They have copyright interests in the design of the book. Other members edited it. Other people and built all the infrastructure. And the beauty of it is, Joseph, is I didn't have a hand in that part at all.
Love it.
I didn't direct the art. I didn't direct the editing at certain levels. I did not build the technology infrastructure that supports all the tools. I didn't have to do it. They did it. And that's why when you hand them those tools, when you give remote talent and top AI tools and then create ongoing everyday training in them, they become that change agent. And that is a remarkable thing.
I love that, brother. It's great. I mean, you basically built agency amongst each member of your team to take a certain level of responsibility, which they're inspired by, to even expand your brand, your clients' brands, even more so than ever. And I love that. I think a great metaphor that I noticed earlier, if you'll accept this, I've never heard this before, is that's like when I see the gentleman there in his office looking out the window, and that the whole design, it's like a little bee, right? Kind of almost. And it's like, maybe that's intentional, perhaps. Maybe
it is intentional. It's also sort of a severance-y kind of theme, which is kind of interesting. But yes, it's sort of this idea that we are all in our cells. We all are managing our interfaces.
Yeah.
And whether you're a big company or an individual contractor, those things become very important. And just look to nature. Nature figured it out.
Amazing. Yeah. And as the word be, right, for the most part, take off an E, I just envision that one can truly be, like, really show up and be joyful, having the systems have all this managed for them. I mean, that's how I feel each day, having my remote talent, the team around me.
Yes.
Knowing that when I'm on vacation, when I'm off, I can be fully off, knowing that the team is there to handle what needs it can handle. They can take responsibility. It's very rare to do in this day and age, even hiring people locally, when you have people who take ownership of the business because they believe in your brand. They want to see you win, hence the brand, Kayana, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you can. Yes, we can. It goes a long way. So I truly honor you for what you built. The book, congratulations on the launch. David, any final words you'd offer Chris as we close out the podcast?
No, I did great. I loved all the perspective, and I mean, we don't have time for me to get really deep into it, but he has, built this structure and framework for not only his firm to be successful, but the companies that hire them are able to be successful as well. So everyone has a vested interest in the success.
Yeah.
And, my remote professional I've had for the longest of anyone. I mean, over 2 years now.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's all because of Chris figuring this out and making sure it's an environment and a culture for people to be successful.
Yeah. And stay on board and thrive. And I love that, basically taking organizations currently coping instead of thriving to one that's thriving in real business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Incredible. Well, thank you for this opportunity to connect with you with your book launch this week happening. For our audience out there, check out rulesforsuccess.com. Grateful to have two extraordinary members of our community, Success Circles, here. Always in that whole context of bees of sorts, there's a lot of what's a word I used before, as far as people sharing value and sorry, it's a whole cross-pollination, right? So it's a lot of cross-pollination happening in our community, and I love how we all can thrive together. When one person shares an asset or a resource, we're always cross-pollinating. There's a lot of it happening in the whole metaphor of bees. Chris, congratulations on this. For our audience, check out Operational Alpha. You can find that on Chris's website, hirekayana.com. Is that Kayana?
That's right, Kayana. That's right.
hirekayana.com. You check it out there, or on Amazon, or at your local bookstore. And once again, thank you guys so much for making time for this.